autumn, spring, mountains, blue skies, and the seas, rainbows, sunshine, and the trees. Jesus, maker of the Lord, Jesus. Ta-da. Summer, winter, autumn, spring, mountains, blue skies, and the seas, rainbows, sunshine, and the trees. You made them, Jesus, the maker of them all. Everywhere I go, I see you right there. In the beauty of nature, you shine all around. For you are everything, and everything is you. Precious Jesus, a wonderful one.
ỌDADEƐ Radio. Like us on Facebook at ỌDADEƐ Radio. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at ỌDADEƐ Radio. You can WhatsApp or call us on 0200 092925.
Morning, noontime, and the night.
Hello. One more time. We want to welcome our esteemed and cherished listeners all over the world to another program by Light for Life on ỌDADEƐ Radio. This is the flagship station of Presec Old Boys, a legacy project of 1981 year group. Every Sunday, we come to your homes with the inspiring word of God and Bible discussions, programs meant to enrich you and to build you up in your walk with God. We want to believe that this week has been a very, very eventful week for you. The Lord has been on your side. He has been in your boat, and He has taken you to the other side of the lake. Last week, we had a very awesome time. Our guest speaker last week was Dr. Jane Bamfo, a psychotherapist, a marriage counselor, a preacher of the word, and an associate pastor. And she blessed us so much. We learned so much. We drank so much as we sat at her feet, to the extent that we want to come for more. We want to come for more this week. And she has, despite a very busy schedule, made provision for us, because after all, she's one of our own. She is married to our school prefect, Kofi Bamfo, and therefore we had to go behind the scenes and make some connections to bring her back. And fortunately for us, she's back. So tonight, this evening, we are going to continue with our discussion on handling our emotions and living a fulfilled Christian life. Handling our emotions and living a fulfilled Christian life. This is part 2 of the program. Part 1 was last week. The entire program is on our various social media platforms, and you are free to always log in on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, and listen to this awesome discussion. It was a very timely message, and today we are here, and I believe you also are in your various homes with your pen and pencils and whatever, coming to make some notes on this very, very, very important topic of handling our emotions and living a fulfilled Christian life. Doc, welcome one more time to ỌDADEƐ Radio this evening.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you for having me. Thank you, ỌDADEƐ Radio. It's a joy to be with you tonight to continue our discussion.
Yes. And you are a very big fish, and we threw our net and caught that big fish. So we want to ride you like the horse secretariat, and ride you till we get all that we need. Because once you leave us, we should be able to say of a truth that the Lord has indeed visited us in the last 2 weeks. We'll be able to be equipped in handling our emotions, because they play a very, very important role in our walk with God. And when we neglect this important aspect of our lives, which we have done in the past, it comes back to haunt us. Before we go ahead, I just want to read our social media handles for our listening audience to know when to call in. You can call on our WhatsApp number plus, that is if you are outside Ghana, plus 233 2000 92925 plus 233 2000 92925. You can follow this lively and interesting discussion on our Facebook page, ỌDADEƐ Radio and ỌDADEƐ Radio Ghana. So we have 2 pages on Facebook, and you can also follow on our YouTube, ỌDADEƐ Radio, on Twitter or X and Instagram at ỌDADEƐ Radio. So these are our social media handles. I'll repeat them again in the course of the program. And the reason why I'll do so is that we want to have an interactive discussion, and you are free to post your questions or call in with your questions for our experts, so that once she leaves here, you don't say, oh, if I had known, I should have asked this question. So post your questions, call in. Our technicians in the studio will take note and will feed you in. Then you can ask your questions to Doc. For the sake of continuity, I just want to recap what I learned last week. So many of you learned so many things last week, but I just want to recall what I learned last week. And for me, from where I sit, last week, I learned that emotions give us information, but not direction. Emotions give us information, but not direction. That's the first thing I learned last week. I'm keeping it very close to my chest. I also learned that emotions are derived from my circumstances. Another thing I learned last week. One more thing is that depression is a condition where light is not seen at the end of the tunnel. It is a very bleak situation. I also learned last week that emotions can define me, who I am. I must make a conscious effort to have a good emotional lifestyle. My emotional health must be good. And the last thing I learned before Doc took me last week was that at the end of every day, as a Christian, I must be able to empty my emotions bucket. Everyone has emotional buckets. At the end of the week, make a conscious effort and empty it out. Don't carry it over. At this stage, I would like Doc to also come in to give a summary of what she shared with us last week, and then we go to the main show. These are the comedies, the preamble. We want to go to the main show today. Today, we are going to look at anger, bitterness, rage, shame, unforgiveness, so many things within the time frame. We're hoping to do that. And when you bring your questions, and if it will mean that Doc will come another time, but she's so busy on the international circuit that bringing her back will be difficult. So let's wrap it up today, once and for all. So Doc, your audience is ready to for you to give a summary of recap of last week, what we learned. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. I began last week by saying that I want to start with a verse that I think is very central to having a healthy emotional well-being, and also in growing up abundantly and living for God. And Proverbs 4:23 says, so above all, guard the affections of your heart, for they affect all that you are. Another translation says, pay attention to the welfare of your innermost being, for from there flows the wellspring of life. Pay attention to the welfare of your innermost being. And we talked about the fact that your innermost being is your mind, your will, and your emotions, and which we also use the word, it's your soul. And that when we become born again Christians, Jesus lives in our spirit. Our spirit is sealed. It's a sealed canon. But our soul it's where the renewal needs to take place, because our soul is where we have our hurts, our wounds, our disappointment, all of that in our mind. That's our thought life, in our emotions. So the Bible speaks about God means look after the affections of your heart. It means take care of them. And that's why we're having this conversation. I know you talked about the fact that you learned last week that emotions come from our experiences and that we need to look after our emotions. And you talked about depression. But another way that I define emotions is that they are the fuel that drives our actions. So if we're going to live emotionally healthy lives, then we have to learn the place of feelings in our lives. It's the fuel. Think about fuel in a car. That's what makes the car go. So emotions are, I call it also the spice of life. It's like when you're cooking, you need spices in there to really make the food nice. So emotions also are the spice of our lives. And so we need to learn about emotions. And many of us, we also talked last week, are disconnected from our emotions. And we have feelings that drives the things that we do. But sometimes people are not aware of those feelings or the way that those feelings motivate their behaviors. And therefore, what happens that a lot of people or a lot of us react unconsciously, and we are not even aware of what is going on inside us. And that's why I read that verse to start with. Pay attention to the welfare of your innermost being. So I want to just jump in from here, give you 3 things that will help people to really become aware of their emotions. Then we can get into today's topic of anger and shame and unforgiveness, all the things we're going to talk about. So the first step is that we have to learn to reconnect with our emotions. And we call that in my work emotional awareness. And this might be difficult if you're a person who has never grown up or has never been taught feeling words. That means that sometimes you don't have the words for what you're feeling, but you can learn it. That's why we use the word also emotional intelligence. We can grow in our emotional intelligence. So emotional awareness, number 1, is first being aware that you're a human being created in the image of God, but you also have emotions. It's the fuel that drives our behaviors. So normally we have just 2 categories for our emotions. We have joy and we have peace. But then we also have emotions like anger, sadness, and fear. So all emotions. So we don't say that anger is a negative emotion and then joy is a positive emotion. I don't see them like that, Eddie. I say that all emotions have a useful purpose. Even if they are uncomfortable for you to experience, all emotions have a useful purpose. Then the second thing is emotional intimacy. So what am I saying about emotional intimacy? That means that I am able to share my feelings with another person. So let's say if I am upset with my husband, I build emotional connection with Kofi when I'm able to say to him, I am upset about what happened. Because when we share with people that we have a relationship with and we use I statements, not you statements, we connect. So emotional intimacy is being able to also share what we are feeling with another person. And then the last part is that it's emotional maturity. I mean, this is the goal. This is where all of us need to get to, which means that we acknowledge, we accept, and we own what we are feeling. And then we go the next step also of being able to share my feelings with others in a way that is healthy. Because if I'm angry with my husband, I scream at him, guess what? He doesn't see my anger. He just hears my high-pitched voice. So a lot of time people don't share their feelings appropriately. So emotional maturity is growing to the point, and that's the goal that we all must be heading towards, where first of all, we are aware of our emotions, we are able to share it, and we are able to do it in such a way that it is not destructive to the other person, that we choose what I call appropriate and healthy behaviors even when I'm experiencing intense emotions. And when we go to talk about anger, I'll show you how to have those appropriate responses.
Thank you, Doc. So, Doc, just a quick one before we go to today's meal.
Okay.
I'm still feasting on last week's meal and what you just served us. In terms of the fact that you talk of emotional intimacy and you give an example of a marriage one where one is trying to convey his emotions to the spouse.
Yeah.
Now, in so doing, are we to do it in a non-verbal way or a verbal method?
Of course, it's verbal. It's verbal. You're going to communicate and share. What you see, what you want to get across to the other person is how you are feeling. So there's a technique or a process that I teach my clients, which is called, when you are talking about your emotions to another person, use IFAB statements. IFAB statements. That means you say, I feel, feeling word, about situation, because reason. When we start talking to somebody and we say, you made me feel this way, you make me angry, as soon as you start with you, the other person gets defensive and puts a defense, and they don't hear you. So when you use I feel this way about this situation because reason. And when you use that, it helps the other you to get the message across to the other person. So it's how you share that with your spouse. It's not whether verbal or non-verbal, it's how you share it. That is using words. I mean, when we teach children, we tell them when kids are crying and they're so upset, we teach them, use your words. Use your words. What are you feeling? What are you, because sometimes people cry inside, like, you know, so we say to kids when we're training them with emotional intelligence, okay, calm down now, take a breath. What are you feeling? Use your words. And we have to remember that there are a variety of words. It's not just anger and sadness. Sometimes it means like, I feel alone, I feel lost. All of them are emotional words. So emotional words can have a wide range of words, not limited to sadness, anger, and fear.
So Doc, if I get the picture you are painting for us tonight, it is said that just still on this example, just I'm not overflogging the horse, but just to get it on for our listeners to get the picture, especially with the marital allusion you just made. If I'm upset with my partner, I must be expressive. I must express it because the emotions are meant to be expressed, as opposed to squeezing my face and then walking away and expect her to pick the message that I'm upset. I should be able to verbally voice out my how I'm feeling, rather than squeeze my face and walk away and expect her to pick the message that, hey, my husband is upset.
Yes, yeah. You need to be able to find your words, because what needs to get out, even when we're angry, is what has hurt us, not the anger. What needs to come out is the pain, not the anger. And I can give you a biblical example. When Cain and Abel, when he killed his brother and God came into the garden, God said to him, where is your brother? For I can hear, I'm paraphrasing, you know, him crying out. And he said to Cain, what is it? It means, what is hurting you? Because he was in pain. And a lot of times when people are angry, they are in pain.
Good. If we want to go this route, we're not even touch today's topic. So let's move on to today. So today we are focusing on anger, rage, unforgiveness, grudges, and then shame and all those things. So to kick the ball for today's discussion, Doc, what is anger, and why is anger a very challenging emotion and sometimes a very destructive emotion?
Anger is the emotion, this is how I see it from the Bible also, that God gave us to enable us to protect ourselves and also others from danger. So when something hurtful or something scary has happened, so anger is that emotion. It's also an emotion that comes out for injustice. It enables us to see an injustice. And so it's a very important emotion. But it is the one emotion. Here's the thing, Eddie. It is the one emotion that always is accompanied by a lot of emotional energy. And scientifically, we say that the adrenaline rush from anger is more than any other emotion. It releases so many neurochemicals in us. And sometimes, not sometimes, anger also is the emotion that when you start to feel it, it's almost like something is rising up inside of you. And what it does is that it also takes energy away that is supposed to go to other parts of the body. All are driven by the anger. And that is why sustained anger for a long time can physiologically be harmful to your body. It diverts energy away that is supposed to go to other muscles. And all this energy comes in the anger. And that's why if we don't learn to harness it well, we will be destructive. But like I said, it is a important emotion because it enables us to be able to rise up when there's injustice, there's something wrong or hurtful has happened. It protects us.
So it's natural. Anger
Yes,
is natural.
it's a useful emotion.
Wow.
It protects us.
Interesting. And so from that perspective, how do we control the anger? Because you are saying that sustained anger can have a physiological effect on us, affect us because of we losing energy in the body, can lead to other consequences or repercussions here and there. How do we control anger?
Let me add this before I build on what I said earlier, that anger also is an emotion that we say is a secondary emotion, because normally the reason why it's secondary is that there is always another emotion underneath anger. Anger arises in us because of a hurt or a fear or being hurt. And anger is like one way that we define or talk about anger is that anger can be seen like a bodyguard. You know what a bodyguard? A bodyguard. So anger is like the bodyguard of emotions. It protects us from feeling our vulnerable emotions, which are underneath it. And you say, what are those vulnerable emotions? A lot of time when you peel back somebody's anger, underneath that anger is a lot of hurt, disappointment. Let me give you a good example. Women, for example, we are socialized a lot in our childhood when we are growing up. Women are socialized to be nice people, to be caregivers, and to be people pleasing. So the extreme of that is that it's almost like anger must not be a thing that a woman should have. So not all women, but some women mask their anger as I'm stressed. But really, when you peel the layers back and you begin to actually explore with them what is going on in their life, you realize there might be a hurt there, there might be a disappointment there, there might be something shameful that has happened that is not being addressed. But anger is that emotion that is like a bodyguard. It covers us so that we don't feel that vulnerable emotion of, say, shame or hurt. But whenever you peel back the layers of anger, there's always hurt underneath. There's always disappointment.
Yeah, but look, so that it means that anger is a reflection or a reaction to certain underlying conditions. And the underlying conditions vary. You give example of someone who is an advocate of societal change, sees injustice in society. He becomes angry of a situation. He begins to organize people here and there. You give an example of the home where an intransigent wife or husband or even the children keep on making mistakes over and over again. And then The parents get angry, they express it, their anger. So, but if we peel the layers, we come to the point where that this is the cause of the anger.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
the true assertion?
Yeah. Because anger, and what anger does, it shields us. I'll give you another example. A lot of times, even people who we work with, or people that have gone through traumas and things like that, they are angry. Maybe somebody's been abused physically or sexually in a relationship or in their childhood, and they, as a child, they didn't have the ability to speak up about that event. So maybe as an adult, maybe as they're talking about it, they're angry about what happened to them. But when you kind of begin to also talk to them, or what I call dig at it, or explore what is going on with them, you see underneath the anger is also, let's say, shame of what happened to them that has not been addressed. Sometimes underneath that is also sadness, a grief that I lost my childhood because this happened to me. So it is a very important emotion. And God gave us anger, because even the Bible talks about that God is angry with us, but only for a moment. That's how the Bible puts it when it talks about God's anger. It says God was angry and he turned away from us, but only for a moment. Even God doesn't get angry for long. Jesus got angry in the temple when the people began to use the temple as and selling in the hallway or the porches of the temple. He said, my father's house has become a den of thieves. And he had a righteous, holy anger rose up in him, just like you were saying, against how they had turned the house of God into something. But underneath that, even if I go to what happened to Jesus, you will see that if you study those verses, really Jesus was also addressing that people came to the temple to worship God, to seek forgiveness for things. So those people selling there were robbing the people of their intimacy with God. And that's what made Jesus angry. So it wasn't just anger because they were selling, but it's what it was doing also to the people. And that's an example of anger acting as a secondary emotion, where underneath it is other emotions.
I'll come to the righteous anger or holy anger, and how people justify it. But still, to pick on the statement you made that anger comes about when we have unaddressed underlying issues. So you gave the example of someone who had been abused in the past, and that issue had not been addressed. And from time to time, that thought comes to him or her, and then it results in anger. Okay. Now, my next question is, how long is it acceptable for me to be angry over an issue? What is the duration?
That's such a difficult question, because there is no duration, but it's the fact that let's take it from the Bible. It says, be angry, but don't sin. I'm paraphrasing, don't let the sun go down on your anger. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to sort everything before you go to bed. But really what that means is that don't let the anger go on for a long time. If something happened in my childhood and at my age now, I haven't addressed it, and I'm carrying that hurt still in my heart, guess who that hurt is going to damage? Me. So it's not how long, but it's finding expression and release for our emotions safely. And I'm going to give you some steps, simple steps that can help people. Remember, when I'm talking this way, I am slowing down a process that you need to train yourself over and over again. That's why I said that emotional intelligence is learning and finding words to express our emotions. But you grow in emotional intelligence. So that the steps that I have, that I share with clients on how to deal with anger, when I give them the steps, or sometimes we work through these steps, it doesn't mean that by the following week all of it is gone. It's going to take practicing, because that's how we develop new habits. It's when we practice it. Because all our habits are second nature. That means we learn them, and so we can unlearn them. So it is with our emotions. We can learn to deal with our emotions. We can learn emotional language. So there are healthy ways of dealing with anger. Because the Bible says, be angry. It doesn't say don't get angry. It says, be angry, but don't sin. And what does don't sin mean? It means don't do something. You're laughing. I see something is coming. It means
I'm
don't do
laughing
something.
because
Eddie, you're going to say something. Don't do something destructive with your anger. What are you going to say?
I'm going to say something because in marital life, we have
Yes.
periods we call cold wars, where
Yes.
for 2-3 days, couples
Yes.
don't talk.
Yes.
Everyone is entrenched.
Yeah.
Everyone has his emotions, and we bypass one another. The marriage becomes what we term mechanical. Don't talk to each other, or even if we talk to each other, it's just to respond to urgent issues because everybody feels hurt. You're advising us tonight from a professional point of view, both biblically and professionally, that such long, cold wars, not talking to each other 3-4 days, is not the best.
No.
So what should we do?
Okay, I'm going to say the first step. Remember, I'm slowing this down, and the more we practice this, we will do it. I mean, I tell people in my church, I've learned to breathe a lot, deep breathing, and I said it's helped me to stay married for almost 37 years. Why am I saying that? So that when you take a deep breath, it helps you to calm down. And it also helps so that emotional brain doesn't hijack thinking brain and you just say whatever it is. That's called reaction. You are reacting. You want to respond to things. So the first way that we deal with anger is we own it. We say, I'm angry. We say, Eddie, I'm angry with you. This puts the anger out there. You have owned it to be angry, Eddie. It doesn't mean you have sinned. You say, I'm angry with you, Jane. That's number one. Number two, I call it restraint. That means restrain your immediate response. Most of us saw anger modeled negatively when we were growing up.
Yes.
It was either shouting,
Yes.
it was either physical venting, or it was withdrawal, the Cold War, or silence. All of the ones, everything I've listed is destructive. Whether it's silence, whether you withdraw from your relationship or your partner, or physical venting or banging of doors. So a lot of times we learn anger from our families of origin, FOO, from our experiences, from our environment. That's where we learn all learning. Our environment, our experiences, our FOO. So when I'm working in therapy with clients, I always go back to say, when did you first see anger in your home growing up? How was it addressed? People, it could be a number of ways, Then, so number two, restraint means that relearn your response to anger. It's not shouting, it's not venting, it's not withdrawal. So if I'm feeling the emotion of anger rising within me, and I know I'm going to say something that is not nice, you can count to 10. Take a time out. That's one technique. Take a time out. 1 to 10. You say, that doesn't work for me, Jane. Count to 100, my friend. You say, that doesn't work for me. Count to 1,000, my friend. You say, that doesn't work for me. Or you say, just say, can we talk about this later? Walk away, take a deep breath. When we breathe deeply, it connects to the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of our system that calms us down. So when we breathe deeply, it calms us down. And guess what it does? It grounds us so that emotional brain, that's how I like to call it, doesn't hijack thinking brain. Because look at this statement people make a lot. They say, off the top of my head. Really, off the top of our head has got nothing good. We need to just pull back, take a deep breath, and respond, not react. So first of all, you have to relearn, all of us, our response to anger through different ways like breathing, call a timeout, say, can we discuss this later? Don't just say whatever you are thinking in that moment. That's reacting. There's a verse that I wrote down, and I use a lot, Proverbs 29, verse 11. Proverbs 29, verse 11 says, you can recognize fools by the way they give full vent to their rage. You can recognize fools by the way they give full vent to their rage and they let their words fly. This is the Bible. Proverbs 29, 11.
So,
God
Sister
is
Jane,
saying, don't let your words fly.
so Sister Jane, in terms of the reaction, how people react differently, but you have
Yes.
given us certain ways we can react when we have anger trying to take control of us. So
I'm not finished though. I've got 2 more points. So
oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So the first one was own it. Own your anger. Say, I'm angry. Put it out there. You haven't sinned. Second one was restraint. That means relearn your response to anger. Call a timeout, whatever. Number 3 is locate the focus of your anger. Why are you actually angry? Do you remember when I said that anger is such a secondary emotion? Sometimes people don't even know what is making them angry, but underneath is other things. So locate what exactly is you are angry about. What is the wrongdoing by whoever you are angry with? Locate it. Why are you angry? Because what needs to come out of us is the hurt, not the anger. But sometimes the anger comes out and we give that full vent, the way that Bible verse talks about it, and then our words fly. So, and then number 4, I am kind of slowing down what happens. And then through practice, when you learn this, and these are things that I am learning in my own life and it's helping my relationships. And number 4 is analyze your options. That means, okay, so I'm angry with Eddie because I don't like the way he spoke to me. That's what is making me angry. That's the focus of my anger. So what are you going to do, Jane? That's analyze your options. Are you going to say, also going to talk rough at him and also yell at him? Is that loving? If you're going to confront, you confront in love or you give it to God. Sometimes when we say give the pain to God, it doesn't mean that you are not dealing with your emotions. No, you cast the wrong and commit the person to God. And that's how you release the anger. So number 4 is analyze your options. Okay, you've recognized what is actually made you angry. So what are you going to do? Are you going to slap the person back for slapping you? You have to analyze your options. Or you're going to tell them that you slapped me and that is wrong. I'm not going to slap you back. But next time you do that, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. You kind of give a boundary. You know, so I'm asking the question. So is your response to what the person has done, is it loving to slap them back? No. Is it positive to slap them back? No. If you're going to confront, you have to confront in love. And the word actually confront, which a lot of people don't like, the word confront means co-fronting. It means front a situation. It actually means that.
Go ahead.
Okay, so that's the four ways. Number 1 is I'm angry. Own the anger, put it out there. It doesn't mean that you have sinned. It doesn't mean you done anything wrong. Number 2 is relearn your response to anger. Go back and think, where did you learn about anger? How was anger modeled when you were growing up? Or your first experience of people who were angry? What did they do? People will say, oh, they used to shout. People will say, oh, they used to bang doors. People will say, oh, they don't talk. All of those are not positive ways of dealing with anger.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And one of the things you just said, which I want listeners to really take home, is in the way we control our anger. And in so doing, we need to communicate effectively. You see, so like you're saying, sometimes you take a time off, and it happens. We've seen experiences among couples when they are having disagreements. Doc is advising us tonight, just take a time out, either go to the room, a time out for tension to calm down, or just go outside to the park. By the time you come back in an hour or so, things would have calmed down. Rather than say, I need to talk to you in the room. I need to talk to you. I mean, in the very commanding way, I need to talk to you. Okay, before we go on break, Doc, in our workplaces, we've seen managers express anger when we fail to do our work properly here and there. And some managers have gained notoriety for their anger and in terms of reaction to employee performance. And that has created a tag of, or makes them feel very powerful. They are very powerful and it gives them control. Can you throw light on some of these office workplace?
I think I believe that a lot of times those experiences also are people who have walked out of their homes with anger and then they bring into the workplace. And then they come and vent that anger on somebody else. And that is why I was talking about the fact that a lot of time when people are angry, they need to locate the focus of their anger. Because somebody comes home from work even as well, and then they yell at their child who hasn't done anything because somebody at work yelled at them. So you need to just sit. That's why I talked last week and I said it today again, that emotions are the fuel that drives our behavior. So all of us need to connect and say with our emotions and go, okay, what is happening inside of me? Just take a moment, take a minute. Okay, what is going on with me, Jane? What is it? What is upsetting me? And really connect with what we are feeling. We need to learn to sit with our emotions, acknowledge it, feel it, and then that's the only when we can express it fully. Because when we resist it, it will persist. This is an old therapeutic adage. We say what you resist will persist. So you got to not resist what you're feeling. So people who in the workplace who blow up, a lot of them, Eddie, are carrying anger, unresolved pain in their hearts, and they need to take a step back and recognize that actually that employee, maybe they didn't do their work well, but the rage, we say sometimes people express $5, $100 rage for a $5 offense. And that is where you know that the rage is old. There's something, anger that has sat in that person and simmered for many years.
One minute dada.
And that's what people do a lot of times. And then it turns to rage or bitterness. And that's another whole thing.
Okay, so before we go on break, one more thing. So when you touch on holy anger, righteous anger, are we saying that you give the example of Jesus, and also there are other examples where the anger needed to be expressed to address an issue? Does that make it justifiable? Are we saying that righteous anger, holy anger is justifiable?
Yes, it is. Anger is justifiable once it is not destructive.
Okay. So listeners,
once you don't do something destructive with your anger.
Okay. Thank you, Doc. We'll take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to go to the other topics for today. It's been very interesting so far. Great insight. Woman of God, availing herself as a vessel to be used to bless us also this week. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, but before we go, I just want to also remind you of our social media handles. We're expecting you to call in, to send your questions for Doc to answer, because once she leaves us tonight, I don't know when we're going to get her again. So on WhatsApp, you can call on +233 2000 92925, +233 2000 92925. On our Facebook pages, ỌDADEƐ Radio, ỌDADEƐ Radio Ghana, 2 pages. Just go there, type your question, whatever question you want Doc to address. And on YouTube, on ỌDADEƐ Radio, and on Twitter and Instagram, ỌDADEƐ Radio. So please, these are the social media handles. Send your questions, your concern. If you also want to contribute to the program by way of a contribution, you can also post it there. We're going to read it for you, or you can call in and we'll feed you in, and then we'll move on to it. So we'll take a short break, and when we come back, Doc will address other issues which we have here. Thank you very much.
ỌDADEƐ Radio. Like us on Facebook at ỌDADEƐ Radio. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at ỌDADEƐ Radio. You can WhatsApp or call us on 0200 092925.
What does the Bible say? And what sort of light does it throw on any life-related issue? John chapter 1 verse 5 states, "And the light shineth in darkness, and darkness comprehended it not." Light for Life is a Christian panel discussion program on all life-related issues and how the Bible helps us in its day-to-day application. Beloved, my name is Reverend Gordon Kwashi, and I invite you to join me and my guests on the Light for Life program on ỌDADEƐ Radio Online this and every Sunday from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. I trust that as we engage in this Light for Life program, we'll all be able to say to our God, "In thy light we shall see light." God richly bless you as you tune in.
I don't know what I would do without him. Whom shall I fear?
ỌDADEƐ Radio. Like us on Facebook at ỌDADEƐ Radio. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at ỌDADEƐ Radio. You can WhatsApp or call us on 0200 092925.
Summer, winter, autumn, spring, mountains, blue skies, and the seas, rainbows, sunshine, and the trees. Jesus, maker of the Lord, Jesus. Da-da. Summer, winter, autumn, spring, mountains, blue skies, and the seas, rainbows, sunshine, and the trees. You made them, Jesus, maker of them all. Everywhere I go, I see you right there. In the beauty of nature, you shine all around. For you are everything, and everything is you. Precious Jesus, a wonderful wonder you are. Oh, 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 morning, noontime, and the night. Voices, rhythm, melody. People, places, everything. Jesus, the maker of the Lord. Everywhere I go, I see you right there.
ỌDADEƐ Radio. Like us on Facebook at ỌDADEƐ Radio. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at ỌDADEƐ Radio. You can WhatsApp or call us on 0200 092925.
Listeners, welcome back after a short break. And we continuing these interesting conversations we're having with our resource person, Dr. Jane Bamfo, based in London. She's taking us through a very, very, very interesting presentation, answering our concerns, and we are continuing the second part of the program. And we want to ask Doc, anger and rage, can they coexist with forgiveness? You are muted, please. You are muted, Doc. Doc, you are muted.
Yes, I just realized that, yeah, a
Okay,
lot
so let
of
me ask
pain,
my
sorry
question
about
again.
that. A lot of pain in our lives is because that has not been addressed. You know, a good biblical example is Absalom. He had so much pain in his heart for his sister Tamar, who was raped by his stepbrother. And he had so much rage that he went and eventually he killed his brother. And that's what happens when anger sits in our heart for so long and we don't address what it is that hurts. So when people are angry, what needs to come out, like I said earlier, is the hurt. When we don't deal with that anger or the pain it has caused us, and it sits heavy in our heart, that's what leads to that rage where the emotions then get out of control and then it gets the better of us. And that's why we have to address the pain. You know, one of the best research papers I've ever read on forgiveness is called the Stanford Forgiveness Project. And it was done by a man called Professor Luskin. And some of his research participants were mothers in Northern Ireland whose sons had died during the problems in Northern Ireland in those days, in the 90s, 80s, and 90s. And at the end of his forgiveness project, he deduced that these women had lost their children to violence, and other people too who attended his forgiveness project, who had so much rage in them. When they did the forgiveness project, it wasn't the fact that their sons had been murdered. It wasn't what was done to them, but it was about how the individual addresses what has been done to them that causes the rage. So he worked with these people on his forgiveness project. And basically, the way that he works, it's become a way that it kind of marries my own Christian theology, is that when something happens to us, Eddie, we create a story about what has happened to us. Then we talk internally to ourselves about that story over and over again. We go on and on. It eats at us. Then that story, then we tell it to other people. And that makes the story or the pain more intense. And then what happens then is that then that's what leads to the rage. But when we work through and release the pain, we don't have to forgive anybody, but we forgive because of what the pain is doing to us, the offended one. Because the perpetrator or whoever has hurt you is busy living their life and you are struggling. You know, so that's even the word forgive, Forgive, is forgive means you are giving a gift to somebody who has hurt you. Not because you are diminishing the wrongdoing, but it's a decision to not allow the hurt to get into your tomorrow.
Yeah, but Doc, so in other words, this issue of forgiveness is a very, very contentious issue, and it's a very contentious. I mean, from what you are saying, forgiveness is supposed to be therapeutic. Now, how do I forgive someone who has not shown remorse at what that person has done? I'm hurt. I'm offended. The offender has not shown any remorse at all. How do I just forgive what the hurt that the person has caused me?
Okay, so first of all, it's about seeing that the action of forgiveness is a choice. You and I don't have to forgive anyone who has hurt us. The decision is yours as the offendee to make that choice. And the reason you make that choice is that if you don't, it will contaminate your life. So you're not forgiving because of the person. Because forgiveness does not, and I repeat, does not always mean a restoration of relationship. It depends. It doesn't always mean that. Because reconciliation takes two people. Forgiveness takes one person. So you are forgiven not because the other person has changed or hasn't changed. You are forgiven because you are the one making, it's your choice. You don't have to forgive anyone. And anybody listening, you don't have to forgive anyone who has hurt you. But it is a choice of yours to heal the hurt so that that hurt doesn't contaminate your life. And that is what forgiveness is about. You are giving really a gift to somebody who has offended you.
Sister Jane,
Yes.
we are Christians. You have been telling us to live according to the word of God. Then today you are telling us also that forgiveness is a choice. We may not necessarily have to. So is it not contradictory to
No, it's not, because
admonition
God
to us?
doesn't tamper with our will. He doesn't. He says, I said before you this day, Deuteronomy, life and death. But he admonishes us, choose life that you and your descendants may live. So the same way I'm saying about forgiveness, that it's a choice you make to release somebody who has offended you. You say, this is how I process forgiveness in my own life. I say, God, I have a reason, but I don't have the right to hold Eddie in my heart. I have a reason he didn't speak to me nicely. So I have a reason to not to forgive him, but I don't have a right to. You say, why am I saying that? This is how I process forgiveness. Because Ephesians 4:32 tells me that Jane is kind and tender-hearted. I put my name there in the Bible. And forgives all as God, for Christ's sake, has forgiven me. So I look at forgiveness as God has forgiven me of much. I start from that premise. Then, as a therapist, when we are working with forgiveness, when people are ready, we don't force anybody to forgive, because the person has to come to that forgiveness place themselves and decide that, okay, I want to release my mom. I want to release whoever has hurt me. Then my role is to facilitate the forgiveness as a process. And the process starts with a decision. Jane, I have decided to forgive so and so for this. Then when you make the decision, guess what happens? All the emotions of what they did to you all rise up. Then you have to do what I call the emotional work, which all takes time. So the decision to forgive is, you can make that decision today. I'm going to release so and so for what they did to me. But then emotionally, you have to work through the emotions. Why am I saying that? Because emotional healing is always a process. It doesn't happen instantaneously. So you work through the anger. And that's why sometimes people say, but I thought I'd forgiven so and so. But whenever I think about them, I still get upset. Then I say to them, keep surrendering your decision and saying, keep reinforcing your decision whenever they come to mind. Say to yourself, Father, I thank you. I have released so and so to you. I've released what they did to me to you. So you are reinforcing that decision. And that also, after a while, the emotional intensity of what was done goes down. But it takes time. That's why we say forgiveness is a decision. Forgiveness is a process. And forgiveness is a gift that you are giving to people who have hurt you because of the pain that is causing you. Because you are rehearsing the story over and over again. And every time you rehearse the story to yourself and to somebody, guess what happens? You relive all the negative feelings again. And mentally and physiologically, it's not helping you.
Yes. So it drains us. And then before I come to my next one, so we can forgive but not forget. Is that right? We often hear that.
Yes, I can speak into that. Forgetfulness is not a human property, it's a God property. Human beings don't have the capability to forget. When the Bible says forgetting those things that are behind, what we do is that in the word, when you look up and study that word, it means that you can be selective with the memory. That means that when you forgive, only God has the capacity to forget. We don't. I have never forgotten certain things that have happened to me. But as I have let them go and release them to God, I don't recall them. The word for recall them to conscious memory as often as I did. So human beings don't have the ability to forget, but we have the ability when we forgive, is that we don't recall the memory consciously as often as we did when we were hurting and were in pain. So yeah.
Wow. Okay, so in that in that same vein, with respect to, you made a very profound statement a few moments ago that forgiveness need not lead to reconciliation, and
Yeah.
that you can draw your boundaries in terms of relationship with the offender. Can you throw some more light before we go ahead?
Yeah, obviously it depends on the relationship with the person, with the perpetrator, the person who has hurt you. Obviously, if it's a marital situation, you have to build and work towards reconciliation. That's both parties must be willing to. But where it's a case of, let's say, an abusive situation, where is the place of a relationship that also was toxic or whatever, and you have decided that this person is no longer going to be my friend, or this situation, that's when you then draw a boundary, because you don't have to restore relationship with that person, because reconciliation takes two people, forgiveness takes one person. So I can decide that, okay, what this my friend has done, I'm going to forgive her and all of that, but I don't want to have a friendship with her. So that's where boundaries come in. And what is a boundary? A boundary is a property line that you draw, like a gate you put around your heart and your life, where you say, this is how far I go with this person, this is how far I go with this person. God is a God of boundaries. You're laughing. God tells us, God is, we learn boundaries from God. God tells us who He is, who He is not. But God never withholds His love from us. So you can love people. That the Bible says that the love of God has been poured into our hearts by the Holy Spirit. We can learn to love people, because love is not a feeling, it's a decision. But we don't have to be best friends with them. That's where the boundary comes in. It's my
So
choice to not spend time with that person or bring them into my circle again.
so I've forgiven him or her,
Yes,
but these are my boundaries.
exactement.
Obia ndi ni lemu
No.
na mi di mi lemu sa.
No.
I'm not minding him or her again.
Mm-hmm.
If I see him or her morning, and then I keep to my boundaries are so rigid.
Yeah.
Reconciliation is a choice, because I don't want a recurrence of
Yeah.
what happened again. Therefore, I've drawn strict boundaries in terms of that relationship I had
Yeah.
with that person. It could be a conversation, certain things I don't discuss with the person
Mm-hmm.
again. It could
Yeah.
also be that this issue, I don't want to get involved. Here and there, I draw boundaries, and I make my boundaries so clear to that person. So listeners, we are learning so much. Forgiveness is a choice. From the Christian perspective, God encourages you to bring it out, and then you make that choice that, look, irrespective of what the person has done for me, I'm letting it go because I'm a child of God. But Dr. Banfo is telling us that only God forgets. Occasionally, the issue will come up in your mind, and that issue will come up again. But remember that you've forgiven the person already. So don't let that recollection spoil your mood and set you up again and bring anger and all those things back to you. We are running out of time, but we still have two more issues to look at. And Doc, since you are also you are here, I want to take advantage about the issue of shame. How do we handle shame?
Okay, let me
and
say
how
something
and
quickly.
the effect of shame on emotional health. And then
Okay.
because of time, can you add low self-esteem also to it?
Okay,
For
let me
example.
just say something quickly about reconciliation and forgiveness, and I'll answer your question on shame. I want to just put a caveat. The choice to forgive you can lead to reconciliation only. This is the caveat for reconciliation. If it is safe or is prudent or is right to do that reconciliation, because you don't want to put yourself back into an unsafe relationship again or when it's not right. That's the caveat for reconciliation. Now let's talk about shame. So shame is an emotion that happened in Genesis 3, and as Christians, and especially as therapists who are Christian, we say that shame is the beginning of our human brokenness, or the beginning of a big word we use is human psychopathology. I call Genesis 3 the day that everything broke down for mankind. Well, what am I saying? In Genesis 3, the Bible says that God had given Adam and Eve instructions and they ate the fruit. And then when God came into the garden, they said that I was afraid and I was ashamed and I hid. So shame is a very toxic emotion that a lot of people have, and people don't know that they have it. But it gives you the feeling that they are not worthy, and also that that they are not worthy of love or belonging. When Adam and Eve hid from the presence of God, Adam said, I was afraid, so I hid. And that's what shame does. It makes people hide. What do I mean by hiding? Hiding means that they don't bring their true self into their relationships because they feel defective in some way. And that's what shame does. You know, one doctor defines shame as the intensely painful feeling or the experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore we are unworthy of love. My short, quick answer to shame when I'm working with shame, especially with believers, is that I always say that shame is healed in the presence of free grace. Shame is healed in the presence of free grace. And what is free grace? Free grace is God looking at you and I and saying, I love you, Jane. Not because of anything you have done. I love you, Eddie. Not because of anything you have done, but because of what Jesus did on the cross. So God sees you as worthy. And that's where self-esteem comes in. The word self-esteem means self-value. Your value and my value of any believer. If you want to know your value, look at the cross. You are
Yes.
so worthy, my friend, that Jesus was willing to come and die for you. So a lot of times our experiences, our environment has spoken or shame into our being. And what shame does is that it actually people have shame and they don't even know they have it. But what they do is they hide who they are. They are they don't come forward with their giftings and talents. So the way that I speak to that person or to that soul that is dealing with shame is that you are worthy. See yourself the way God sees you. When God looks at you, you're worthy. And to heal shame is to come out of hiding. What's hiding? That hiding of your true self. And the way that people also get that false self and not bring their true self, number of ways. But one quick way, Eddie, is that when we're growing up, we do little things. Then they say, why can't you be like this? Why can't you be like this person? So after a while, consciously, we start to pull back and hide the person that we are because I am not like this person. But the true person that you are is always inside you. Then as time grows, you discover that unconsciously you don't bring your true self because that's the self that was criticized, that was the self that was put down. And these are some of the fundamental beginnings of toxic shame. So when you think about what God did, when he came in the garden, he called out Adam. He says, where are you? And I believe that even tonight, as we speak, God is calling out to his children, saying, where are you? Come out.
Amen.
Come out. I accept you. I love you. I made you in my image. You are worthy. So God is still calling out. And one of my favorite movies that I use when I'm illustrating shame is the Lion King. It's our family's favorite movie. Kofi loves that movie so much. And when Nala went to Simba, because Simba had run away because his uncle had made him, the Lion King, had made him feel unworthy. To cut a long story short, when he went to this water, then he saw his father's reflection. His father had died, Mufasa, and that's the big lion. Yes. And he said to Simba, go back. You know, I'm your father, you are this and all of that. And I use that movie to say that that's what God does. He says, look in the mirror, Eddie, who are you? Look in the mirror. What do you see? You see, you are made in my image. So God calls us out of that shame. And he says, you are worthy, son. You have value, you have esteem, because I was willing to let my son die for you. So long story short, shame is healed when we receive and we keep acknowledging that we are made in the image of a divine God. He loves us, he accepts us, he values us, to destabilize the words and the hurts that have brought that shame into our life, and then he builds our esteem. Because belonging and love are, Brené Brown calls it that belonging and love are two irreducible needs of every human being. We all need to be loved, and we all need to know that there's space here for us in the earth. And so, I want to wrap with that. God is calling us out to live emotionally healthy, and he's calling us out to be as worthy sons and daughters of his.
Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you very much, Doc. Food for thought for us. We need to come out and overcome shame and low self-esteem. In many instances in relationships, we've seen verbal abuse creating low self-esteem for parties in the relationship, because whatever they are doing is not accepted, or they are not seen as equal partners in the relationship. Whatever suggestions and advice they bring, they are not taken. And sometimes it could be because probably of their background. The other party thinks that he or she considered that person in marriage or showing favor here and there. And that is why sometimes we behave. But Doc is telling us tonight that as a child of God, we need to rise above. There's a question here. Let me just see the question. Just a moment. Let me add the question to it. It's a question. We just got the question. Okay. 1 minute, please. Let me see. There's a question.
Okay.
So that is it. And we need to really. Oh, okay. One of our listeners sent a message. Nana Brenya, also of 1981, says, Doc, you've been so awesome tonight. An amazing program. I've learned so much. Be Nyenye. We call him Be Nyenye. He sent this message on our social media platforms. He wants Doc, says he's going to listen to the message again, the program again later on. But from what he's learned so much, he was with us last week, and this week too, he tuned in and he sent this message commending our guest speaker. So, Doc, before you leave us, are there any resources that you want to recommend, both in terms of books or any online resources, or with respect to yourself? Anything you want to recommend for our listeners as we deal with this issue of, are there presentations you have made in the past where we can assess so many things? Can you come out and share some of them with us so that we can drink fully tonight before we leave? as
Okay,
part
so
of
I
your
mean, when you go on YouTube and you look at search for my name and under Praise Christian Center London, I have a teaching series where it's a 5-part teaching series called Let the Healing Begin, and on YouTube, and I talk about emotional healing, I talk about shame, I talk about the Father's love, healing the Father's love, all of that. Or you can go to janebanfo.com, my website, and also connect with me. Or my Instagram handle is at Dr. Jane J. Banfo. And my website, I have a book called Lessons from the Chair. And it's 12 lessons that I've learned as a therapist. It's got forgiveness in it. It's got hope in it. It's got don't lose your childlike wonder. There's 12 lessons that I have gleaned as a therapist from my chair. And it's called Lessons from the Chair. It's available on my website, janebanfo.com as well. And yeah, so.
Wow. So listeners, Sister Jane has given us a whole library of resources we can follow. Just as an icing on the cake, go Google her, you see a presentation, go to Praise Christian Center. Is that right? Praise Christian Center.
London.
London. When you go there to their website or even their own website, janebanfo.com, you can see some of the present, especially those 12 lessons she has. Make sure that you drink freely and equip yourself so that you can have a healthy emotional lifestyle as a Christian. It's very, very important. So, Doc, in 2 minutes, your closing remarks and advice to our listeners on this important for the past 2 weeks. You've been taking us through this series. Your closing remarks in 2 weeks, and then we wrap up.
That God desires that we live abundantly. John 10:10, the life that Jesus came to give us is a joyful, abundant, overflowing life. And when we don't deal with our emotional life is part of our lives. So I want you to pay attention with the verse I began with, to the welfare of your innermost being. Process your emotions. Just sit with them, sit and ask yourself, how are you feeling? And even if you don't have anybody to talk to, start. Prayer is communication with God. Talk to God, my friend, about how you're feeling. David in the book of Psalms, the Psalms are all about David expressing his emotions to God. Why, oh God, have you forsaken me, oh God, my rock? So he calls God rock, but at the same time also he says he feels forsaken in his emotions. So talk to God. That's your starting place for living emotionally healthy. That's my desire for you, and that is also God's desire for you, especially men, that we deal with our emotions and we process them. And that would be my
And Doc, why are you saying especially men?
Because sometimes men don't express their emotions. Women are more expressive of their emotions than men.
Okay. I hear that. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Banfo, for
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Another awesome session with us. We've been blessed so much as we sat at your feet this evening also. And listeners, this broadcast is so insightful that we are going to rebroadcast this one over and over again, starting from tomorrow, because we want listeners. This is one area Christians have slept. And Dr. Banfo, God, as you said, to wake us up and address some of these issues that will make our lives more meaningful and have a fulfilled Christian life. We don't want Christians to be walking, having low self-esteem, walking in shame, having unforgiveness, bearing grudges, bitterness, and all those things, not finding a way to express their anger and all the negativities. The Bible says in the book of Galatians chapter 5, that anger is the work of the flesh. And then in verse 22, it asks us to look at gentleness and all these things. But like Doc said, it's a process. It takes time. It will not happen overnight. But you need to make a conscious effort to empty your emotional bottle every week. And then also have the mind that as a Christian, God did not make you a low esteem person. So that will be the starting point for you to gather yourself together, get up the loins of your mind, see your position in Christ, and then to put the icing on the cake, Dr. Banfo has given us so many resources. drjimbanfo.com, Praise Christian Center in London, and Google her name, all the resources, presentations, all available to us. Let us take advantage. And then when we take advantage of these resources, we'll be better Christians, ready to relate to people in our communities, in our homes, and in our workplaces. Thank you, Doc. Personally, you'll be hearing from me because as a marriage counselor myself, I want to really, really, really be well versed in this area so that I can pass on the knowledge to the people that I counsel. God bless you so much, and also to our school prefect and goalkeeper, Kofi Banfo, Reverend Kofi. Why are you laughing? Your husband was a goalkeeper.
That's the part I'm laughing at.
Because you don't see him as an athlete. You have to see him as an athlete. He threw short putt too. So that's something for you. So until another time when we'll come back to your homes with another interesting discussion upcoming. Stay blessed. Have a fruitful week. God bless you all. God is on your side. God will see you through. No weapon that is formed against you shall prosper because you are a child of God. Good night and God bless you all. Thank you.
Bye, Eddie.
Bye. See you again.
Precious